The Verath ship drifted silently through Earth's orbit, completely invisible to every sensor and telescope on the planet below. Commander Krell stood on the bridge, his 3 eyes watching the blue world spin beneath them. He felt satisfied. In 3,000 years of observing primitive species across the galaxy, the Verath had never been detected. Not once. All systems confirm perfect invisibility, his second officer reported. Their radar passes through us. Their satellites see nothing. We are ghosts to them, Krell nodded. The humans were interesting, he had to admit. They had split the atom, reached their moon, and built stations in orbit. But they were still primitive. They had no quantum sensors, no dimensional scanners, and certainly no way to see through Verath cloaking technology. This would be an easy observation mission. Deploy scout ships to major population centers, Krell ordered. Standard protocol. Stay close, watch everything. Remain undetected. 5 smaller ships detached from the main vessel and floated toward Earth like invisible leaves on a cosmic wind. Ji-Wan checked his cargo manifest for the 3rd time. Everything was in order for the trip from Mars to the Sol orbital platform. He had been flying this route for 2 years, and it had become routine. Load the cargo on Mars, sleep through most of the journey, dock at Sol platform, unload, and head back. Simple work, but it paid well. As his ship approached the docking bay, Ji-Wan felt something strange. It was like an itch in his mind that he couldn't scratch. He looked out the window at the empty space near docking bay 7. Nothing there. Just stars in the curve of Earth below, but something felt wrong. Sol platform, this is cargo ship Blue Dragon, Ji-Wan said into his radio. I'm getting a weird feeling about Bay 7. Can you confirm it's clear? Blue Dragon Bay 7 is completely empty, the voice replied. All sensors show clear space. You're good to dock at Bay 5. Ji-Wan frowned. The sensors said nothing was there, but his gut told him something different. He had learned to trust his instincts in space. I'd like to use Bay 8 instead, if that's okay. Bay 8 is available. Switching your dock assignment now. Everything okay, Blue Dragon? Yeah, probably just tired, Ji-Wan said. But he wasn't tired. He was sure something was near Bay 7. Hana had worked security on Sol orbital platform for 5 years. She had seen every kind of smuggler, every kind of technical problem, and every kind of false alarm. When Ji-Wan's request came through, she decided to check it out personally. People didn't usually change docking bays for no reason. She took a small inspection pod and flew it near Bay 7. Her sensors showed nothing. Visual scan showed nothing. But as she got closer, Hana felt her skin crawl. It was the same feeling she got when someone was staring at her back in a crowded room. The feeling of being watched. This is stupid, she muttered to herself. There's nothing here, but she couldn't shake the feeling. She reported it to her supervisor, who told her she was working too many shifts and needed rest. Hana went back to her post, but she kept thinking about that empty space near Bay 7. Over the next week, the reports started coming in. A maintenance worker refused to do repairs near a certain section of the station. He said it felt creepy. A scientist complained that she couldn't focus in her lab because she felt like she was being watched. A shuttle pilot reported feeling uneasy near the moon's orbital path and changed his route. Hana noticed a pattern. All the reports were coming from different areas, but they all described the same feeling. Being watched, uneasiness, a sense that something was wrong even though sensors showed nothing. She brought her concerns to Commander Tae-Yang, the head of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Division. Tae-Yang was a serious man who had spent 30 years in space. He didn't dismiss things easily. Show me the map, Tae-Yang said. Hana pulled up a star chart and marked every location where someone had reported feeling uncomfortable or being watched in the past 7 days. Tae-Yang stared at the screen for a long time. That's not random, he said quietly. Look at the pattern. Those positions give perfect observation points for our major facilities. If I were going to spy on Earth from space, I'd put my ships exactly there. But there's nothing there, Hana said. We've scanned those areas 100 times. Nothing that we can see, Tae-Yang corrected. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Call a meeting with the top scientists and military officers. Something is watching us. I don't know what it is or how it's hiding, but it's there. On the Verath scout ship near Bay 7, the crew was confused and alarmed. They had been detected, not by sensors or technology, but by something they didn't understand. The humans just knew they were there. This is impossible, the ship's science officer said. We've checked every system. Our cloaking is perfect. They have no technology that can penetrate it. But that pilot avoided us, and that security officer flew right up to us and said she could feel us. Maybe it's coincidence, another crew member suggested. It's happening everywhere, the science officer replied. All 5 scout ships are reporting the same thing. Humans keep noticing us, not seeing us but sensing us somehow. They sent an urgent message back to Commander Krell. His response was immediate. Remain absolutely still. Stop all movement. Perhaps their brains detect motion we cannot hide. The Verith ships froze in space, not moving a single meter. But still, the reports from humans continued. Ship pilots felt uncomfortable near certain areas. Station workers reported unease in specific sections. It was as if the humans had some sense that the Verith had never encountered before. Dr. Do-Hyun was a neuroscientist who studied human intuition and instinct. When Commander Tae-Yang called him in for a classified meeting, he was curious. When he saw the map of reported locations, his eyes went wide. I think I know what's happening, Do-Hyun said slowly. Humans evolved as prey animals. For millions of years, we were hunted by predators. We developed an ability to sense when we're being watched. It's not magic. It's our brain processing tiny details we don't consciously notice. Air pressure changes, electromagnetic field variations, even quantum effects at the edge of our vision. You're saying humans can sense invisible watchers? An admiral asked skeptically. I'm saying humans are very, very good at knowing when something is paying attention to them, Do-Hyun replied. It's buried deep in our survival instincts. We feel it before we think it. Commander Tae-Yang looked at the map again. Then something invisible really is watching us. He turned to his military advisors. Start positioning our ships and sensors at every location where people report discomfort. If something is there, we'll box it in even if we can't see it. On the Verith command ship, Krell received reports from all 5 scout ships. They all said the same thing. The humans were moving ships and sensors to surround their exact positions. Somehow, impossibly, a species with primitive technology had detected the most advanced cloaking systems in the known galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years of observation missions, Commander Krell felt genuine fear. The humans couldn't see his ships, but they knew exactly where they were and they were closing in. Commander Krell paced the bridge of his ship, his 3 eyes darting between displays that showed nothing but confirmation of perfect invisibility. Every sensor reading said the same thing. The Verith cloaking fields were working flawlessly. Light bent around their ships. Sound waves passed through without disturbance. Even quantum scanners would find nothing. They were invisible. Yet the humans knew they were there. Run diagnostics again, Krell ordered. There must be something leaking from our systems. His chief engineer shook his head. Commander, we have run diagnostics 47 times. Everything is perfect. We are not emitting any detectable signals. The humans should not be able to find us. Then why, Krell asked slowly, are 3 human military ships now positioned in a triangle around our exact location? No one had an answer. Down on Earth, Yuna sat in a dark room surrounded by screens. She was a military intelligence analyst and she loved puzzles. Right now, she had the strangest puzzle of her career spread across her displays. For 2 weeks, people across Earth's orbital facilities had been reporting weird feelings, unease, being watched, discomfort in specific locations. At first, it seemed like mass hysteria, but Yuna saw something else, a pattern. She had mapped every single report. When she connected the dots, they formed perfect surveillance positions around Earth's most important facilities, the major space stations, the military satellites, the communication hubs, the new Mars shipyard. If she were an invisible spy trying to watch humanity, these were exactly where she would position her observation posts. Either we have a very creative prankster, Yuna said to her supervisor, or something really is watching us from those locations. Her supervisor, Colonel Minho, frowned at the displays. How are they hiding? I don't know, but I think we should ask Dr. Do-Hyun to explain his theory again. Dr. Do-Hyun stood in front of a room full of Earth's top military and scientific minds. He had given this presentation 3 times already, but people still seemed skeptical. He pulled up an image of a human brain. Humans are not the strongest species that evolved on Earth, Do-Hyun began. We're not the fastest or the most armored. For millions of years we were prey. Tigers hunted us. Leopards hunted us. Even large eagles hunted our children. We survived because we got very, very good at knowing when a predator was watching us. He clicked to the next slide. Your brain processes thousands of pieces of information every second that you never consciously notice. Tiny changes in air pressure, slight variations in electromagnetic fields, microscopic movements in your peripheral vision. When something is watching you, even something you cannot see, your brain detects these tiny environmental changes. You feel it as unease as the sensation of being watched. But these reports are happening in space, someone objected. There's no air pressure in space. No, Do-hyun agreed, but there are electromagnetic fields. Quantum uncertainties, gravitational microfluctuations. A large object in space, even an invisible one, affects its environment in subtle ways. The human brain evolved to notice subtle wrongness. We feel when something doesn't fit, even if we can't explain why. An admiral crossed her arms. You're saying humans have a sixth sense? I'm saying humans have very good threat detection instincts. We notice when we're being observed because for our ancestors, being observed usually meant being hunted. It's not magic. It's survival programming written into our brains over millions of years. Commander Taiyang stood up. So if people feel watched in certain locations, there really might be something there. Yes, Do-hyun said simply. I believe something is watching us from those exact positions. Something that's invisible to our technology but not to our instincts. The room went quiet. Then Admiral Soo-hyun spoke. Then we treat this as a real threat. We move ships to every reported location. We don't need to see them to trap them. On the Vareth scout ship, Junior Officer Aaron watched her sensors with growing concern. More human ships were arriving. They were forming a cage around the Varath position. The humans still couldn't see the scout ship, but they knew exactly where it was. How are they doing this? Aaron whispered. The scout ship captain had no answer. In all of Vareth history, across 300 observed species, this had never happened. The cloaking technology had always been perfect. Species with far more advanced sensors than humans had never detected them. Yet these humans, with their primitive radar and simple optical telescopes, knew precisely where to look. Message from Commander Krell, the communications officer announced. All scout ships are to prepare for possible retreat. But first, the commander wants to try one more thing. He believes if we stop all activity, if we become completely passive, the humans will lose interest. The scout ships went into complete shutdown. They stopped all scans. They froze their positions. They became as close to non-existent as possible while still maintaining life support. For 3 days, it seemed to work. The reports from humans slowed down. Maybe the Varath had been right. Maybe the humans had been detecting some activity, some minor energy fluctuation. Then a maintenance worker named Kyung was sent to repair a panel near one of the frozen Varath ships. He got within 20 meters and stopped. He turned pale and called his supervisor. I can't go over there, Kyung said. Something's wrong with that area. The sensors show it's safe, his supervisor replied. I don't care what the sensors show, Kyung said firmly. Something is there. I can feel it. It's like when you know someone is staring at you in a crowded subway, even though you can't see them. Something is watching me from that spot. Yuna added Kyung's report to her map. The Vareth ship hadn't moved at all, but the human had still detected it. She called Dr. Do-hyun. Your theory is right. They've been completely still for 3 days, but people still sense them. It's not movement we're detecting. No, Do-hyun said thoughtfully. It's presence. A large mass affects space around it. Even a perfectly still, perfectly invisible object creates a tiny distortion. Humans evolved to notice distortions in our environment because distortions often meant predators in hiding. Can we build a sensor that detects what humans feel? Yuna asked. Do-hyun paused. Maybe. If we can figure out exactly what environmental cues triggered the being watched response, we might be able to measure those cues directly. 2 days later, physicist Dr. Sung-ho had a working prototype. He called it a probability detector. It didn't see through invisibility. Instead, it measured quantum uncertainty in a specific area. When something large occupied a space, it affected the probability patterns of quantum particles, creating a subtle wrongness that the detector could measure. It's crude, Sung-ho admitted, but it works on the same principle as human intuition. We don't see the invisible object. We see the hole it makes in the probability field. They tested it near one of the reported locations. The detector screamed an alarm. There's definitely something there, Sung-ho said, staring at his screen. Something big. Something massive enough to affect quantum probability across a 50-meter radius. Commander Taiyang made his decision. We know they're there. We know where they are. Now we need to decide, do we attack or do we try to talk? We don't even know if they're hostile, Admiral Suhyun pointed out. They've been watching us secretly for weeks, Minho countered. That's not friendly behavior. Or, suggested Minji, a young diplomatic corps trainee who had been quietly listening. They're scared. Maybe they've never been detected before. Maybe they don't know what to do. Everyone looked at her. Taeyang nodded slowly. You might be right. Fear makes people do strange things. He turned to his communication officer. Send a message on all frequencies directed at the coordinates where people report being watched. Simple message, we know you are there. We mean no harm. Please reveal yourself and talk with us. The message went out into the apparent emptiness of space. On Commander Krell's ship, the crew watched in shock as the communication came through. The humans were talking directly to them. After maintaining perfect invisibility for 3,000 years across 300 species, they had been completely compromised by a prey species that could somehow feel their presence. Krell sat in his command chair for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change Varith society forever. Decloak the ship, he said quietly. It is time for first contact. Whether we are ready or not. The Varath ship appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, shimmering into existence like a mirage becoming solid. It was massive, twice the size of Earth's largest space station, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in metal. Every human sensor that had been pointed at empty space suddenly lit up with contact alerts. On Sol Orbital Platform, Hana stared at her screen in disbelief. It was there the whole time, she whispered. Right where I said it was. Right where I felt it. Commander Taeyang activated emergency protocols across Earth's space defense network. Within minutes, 20 human military ships had surrounded the alien vessel. They weren't shooting, but their weapons were ready. Just in case. Receiving a transmission, the communications officer announced. Audio and video. They want to talk. Put it on screen, Taeyang ordered. Commander Krell appeared on the display. He looked humanoid but clearly alien. 3 eyes set in a triangular pattern, skin that seemed to shift between blue and purple, 4 arms instead of 2. But his expression was easy to read. He looked embarrassed. Greetings, humans of Earth, Krell said in perfect English. The translation technology was flawless. I am Commander Krell of the Varith Observation Fleet. We come in peace and have been observing your species as part of our standard first contact protocols. Observing? Admiral Suhyun spoke up from Earth. You've been spying on us. Observing, Krell repeated carefully. We study developing species before making contact. This is normal procedure. We have done this for 3,000 years with over 300 species. None of them ever detected us. Until now, Taeyang said. Until now, Krell agreed. He seemed genuinely puzzled. We do not understand how you found us. Our cloaking technology is perfect. Your sensors should not be able to penetrate it. Yet you knew exactly where every one of our ships was positioned. Dr. Do-Yun leaned forward. He had been brought into the command center when the ship appeared. We didn't find you with sensors. We found you with instinct. Humans evolved to know when they're being watched. It's a survival mechanism from when we were prey animals. Krell's 3 eyes widened. You felt us? Yes, Do-Hyun confirmed. Your ships might be invisible, but they're not undetectable. You affect the space around you. Humans are very good at sensing when something is wrong with our environment, even if we can't see what's wrong. Remarkable, Krell said softly. In 3,000 years, we have never encountered a species with this ability. Maybe you should have asked permission before watching us, Admiral Suhyun said sharply. Krell looked confused. But you are a developing species. You have not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. You have not made contact with other civilizations. By galactic law, you are classified as pre-contact. We are allowed to observe pre-contact species. Who made that law? Minji asked. She had been brought to the command center because of her diplomatic training, though she was nervous. This was supposed to be her first real diplomatic mission, and it was with invisible aliens. The Galactic Council, Krell explained. It was established 6,000 years ago to govern interaction between spacefaring species. The law states that pre-contact species should be observed but not disturbed until they develop certain technologies. So you're allowed to spy on us because we're primitive? Taeyang's voice was cold. You are not primitive, Krell said quickly. You are developing. There is a difference. We observe to ensure that when contact is made, it will be safe for both parties. Some species become violent when they reach space. Some become expansionist. Some develop weapons that threaten others. We watch to protect ourselves and to protect you. Protect us from what? Minji asked. Krell hesitated. From civilizations that are not as careful as we are. From those who would exploit or harm developing species. From mistakes that could destroy your culture or your planet. First contact is delicate. Done wrong, it can end civilizations. There was silence in the command center. Krell's words made sense, but that didn't make the situation less uncomfortable. How many other species are you watching right now? Yuna asked. She had been analyzing intelligence data throughout the conversation. Krell paused. Currently? 42 species across this sector of the galaxy, all at various stages of development, all unaware they are being observed. Until we tell them, Taeyang said quietly. Krell's 3 eyes widened in alarm. You cannot do that. It would violate every protocol. It could damage those civilizations irreparably. You mean it would end your ability to spy on them? Admiral Suhyun countered. I mean, Krell said firmly, that some species are not ready to know they are not alone. Some would react with fear, some with aggression, some would suffer cultural collapse. The psychological impact of learning you are being watched by invisible aliens could destroy a civilization. Dr. Sungho spoke up for the first time. He has a point. We're handling this because we already suspected something was watching us. But what if you had just appeared over Earth 50 years ago and told everyone you'd been watching? There would have been panic. Wars, maybe? That's why we observe first, Krell said. We learn about your psychology, your culture, your readiness for contact. When the time is right, we reveal ourselves gradually. Except you didn't reveal yourself, Minji pointed out. We caught you. What if we had never detected you? Would you have watched us forever? Krell looked uncomfortable. No. Our standard observation period is 10 to 20 years. After that, we make a decision. Make contact, continue observing, or leave. Your species is fascinating, so we likely would have made contact within 5 more years. 5 years? Hana said angrily. She had joined the meeting via video link. You were going to watch us for 5 more years without permission? It is not meant to be invasive, Krell said. We do not observe personal moments. We watch your public spaces, your broadcasts, your technological development. We are scientists, not voyeurs. But you still watched us without asking, Minji said. Her voice was gentle but firm. You made a decision about what was best for us without giving us a choice. Krell opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He looked at his bridge crew, then back at the screen. You are correct, he admitted finally. We decided what was best for you. We have always decided what was best for the species we observe. No one has ever questioned it before. Because no one knew they were being watched, Do-hyun said. You can't question something you don't know exists. What about the other 42 species? Yuna pressed. Do they deserve to know? Some are pre-industrial, Krell said. They do not even have radio yet. Telling them about us would be incomprehensible to them. But some are more advanced than that, Yuna said. She had been analyzing Krell's responses. At least a dozen must be at roughly our level or higher. They could understand. They should be told. Krell's skin color shifted toward darker purple, which the humans were starting to recognize as a sign of stress. This is not a decision I can make alone. I must consult with the Varath Council. Then consult them, Taeyang said. But know this. Earth will not accept being watched without consent. And we will not be part of a system that spies on other developing civilizations without their knowledge. You do not have the authority to dictate galactic policy. Krell said stiffly. No, Admiral Suhyun agreed. But we do have the authority to visit those other 42 species and tell them they're being watched. We might not have faster-than-light travel yet, but we have time. We'll send slow ships if we have to. We'll send radio messages. We'll make sure they know. Krell looked horrified. That would be chaos. 42 civilizations learning about galactic surveillance at once. Some would panic. Some would become paranoid. Some might turn violent. Then give them the choice, Minji said. Her voice was steady now, more confident. Contact them openly. Tell them they've been observed, apologize, explain why you did it. Let them decide if they want you to continue watching or to leave them alone. That has never been done, Krell said. Maybe it should be, Seungho replied. Captain Hyun had been listening quietly from his ship. He was one of Earth's best military commanders, but he also understood diplomacy. Commander Krell, he said, you came here to study us. Now you have a chance to learn something important. Humans value choice and consent. We don't like being watched without permission, even if the watcher means well. Maybe other species feel the same way. Maybe they deserve the choice you never gave them. Krell was quiet for a long moment. His 3 eyes closed, then opened again. I need to speak with my superiors. This conversation is beyond my authority. You have 30 days, Taeyang said. In 30 days, we will begin contacting the other species you're watching. If you want to work with us on this, we can do it together. If not, we'll do it ourselves. 30 days is not enough time, Krell protested. It's more than you gave us, Hana said from the platform. You watched us for weeks without warning. Krell's shoulders slumped. You are right. I will send your message to the council. I hope they understand what you are asking. I hope they see wisdom in it. So do we, Minji said softly. Because the alternative is that we all learn that invisible watchers can be found. And that wouldn't be good for anyone. The Varath Council chamber was enormous, carved from a single crystal that had grown over 10,000 years. 200 Varath leaders sat in circular rows, their 3 eyes all focused on Commander Krell as he stood in the center, explaining what had happened at Earth. They detected us, Krell said, not with sensors, not with technology, with instinct, with feeling. They evolved to know when they are being watched, the council members whispered to each other. This had never happened before. The Varath cloaking technology was their greatest achievement. It had made them the galaxy's premier observers, the keepers of knowledge about developing civilizations. And now, one species of primitive prey animals had completely compromised it. More concerning, Krell continued, is their response. They do not accept being observed without permission. They view it as a violation, and they threaten to reveal our observation of 42 other species unless we change our methods. They have no right, Council Elder Thorin said angrily. They are a pre-contact species. They do not make demands of us. They have the right of any sapient being, a younger voice called out. It was Scientist Prime Thalen, head of the Varath Xenological Research Division. The question is not whether they have the right to make demands. The question is whether they are correct. The chamber went silent. Thalen was one of the most respected Varath in the council. When he spoke, others listened. For 3,000 years, Thalen continued, we have observed species without their knowledge or consent. We justified this by saying it was for their protection, for their good, to make sure first contact was safe. But the humans have asked us a question we never considered. Safe for whom? Safe for everyone, Elder Thorin insisted. Our observation protocols have prevented disasters. We have identified 17 species that were too dangerous for contact. We have avoided wars. We have saved civilizations. And who gave us the right to make those decisions? Thalen asked. The humans are correct that we chose what was best for others without asking them. We are watchers who were never meant to be seen. But now we have been seen. And we must face an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps we should have asked permission all along. On Earth, a special committee had been formed to deal with the Varath situation. Nari, the chairperson of Earth's Ethics Committee, led the meetings. She was a serious woman who had spent her career thinking about difficult moral questions. This was the most difficult question she had ever faced. The Varath believe they are protecting developing species, Nari explained to the gathered officials. They observe to make sure first contact doesn't go wrong, but they do this by spying on civilizations for decades without consent. The question before us is, does good intention justify violation of privacy? No, said several people at once. But, Nari continued, they have a point about safety. First contact really can be dangerous. Civilizations have collapsed from disease, from cultural contamination, from technological imbalance. The Varath are trying to prevent that. Captain Hyun raised his hand. Could there be a middle path? Observation with consent? How would that work? Admiral Soo-hyun asked. You can't ask permission to observe a species that doesn't know aliens exist. The moment you ask permission, you've already made contact. Then maybe, Minji suggested, the observation period should be very short, just long enough to establish that contact is safe. Not years, maybe months, Dr. Do-hyun shook his head. Commander Krell explained that some species would panic if they learned about aliens too suddenly. The Varath observe for years specifically to understand a species' psychology well enough to make contact safely. Which brings us back to the central problem, Nari said. The Varath want to protect developing species. But to protect them, they violate their privacy. Is that protection justified? The room debated for hours. Some argued that developing species needed protection, even if they didn't know it. Others argued that no species had the right to spy on another, regardless of good intentions. Still others pointed out that the Varath were also protecting themselves, making sure first contact wasn't with a dangerous species. Finally, Nari called for a break. As people filed out, she noticed Minji sitting alone, looking thoughtful. "You have an idea," Nari said. "It wasn't a question." "Maybe," Minji replied. "The Varath say they observe to protect species from bad first contact. But what if we're asking the wrong question? What if the problem isn't observation itself, but secret observation?" "Explain," Nari said, sitting down. "The Varath learned about us in secret," Minji said. "They gathered information, made judgments, decided when and how to make contact, all without our input. That's what feels wrong. But what if there was a way to observe openly? What if first contact could happen in stages, with consent at each stage? You mean tell a species they're being observed, then ask permission to continue?" Nari asked. "Exactly," Minji said. "Commander Krell is right that some species might panic if aliens suddenly appeared. But what if first contact was a message? A simple message saying, 'We are here. We are watching from a distance. We mean no harm. We will respect your choice. Do you want us to continue observing, or should we leave?" Nari considered this. Some species might say leave. "Then what?" "Then the Varath leave," Minji said simply. "They come back in 100 years and ask again. Or they wait for that species to develop space travel and make contact on their own terms. And if the species says yes to observation, then it's consensual. The species knows they're being watched. They can prepare. They can ask questions. They can set boundaries. It transforms surveillance into cooperation." Nari smiled slowly. "That's clever. It gives everyone a choice." Commander Krell received the proposal from Earth 3 days later. He read it carefully, then read it again. It was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of hiding and watching for years, the Varath would announce themselves immediately to any developing species. They would explain that they were observers from an advanced civilization. They would offer their observations as a resource, but only if the species consented. Species could say no, and the Varath would leave. Species could say yes with conditions. They could ask the Varath to share knowledge or to stay at a distance. They could change their minds at any time. First contact would become a negotiation, not a surprise. Krell brought the proposal to scientist Prime Thalen. They discussed it for hours, considering every angle. Finally, Thalen leaned back in his chair. "It terrifies me," Thalen admitted. 42 species learning about us at once. Some will panic. Some will become paranoid. Some might even attack us, though we could defend ourselves. "But," Krell prompted. He could tell there was more. "But the humans are right," Thalen said quietly. "We have been watching species for 3,000 years, making decisions about their futures without their consent. We told ourselves it was for their good. Perhaps it was, but perhaps we were also protecting our own comfort. It is easier to watch from hiding than to face the difficult questions that come with real contact." "You support the human proposal?" Krell asked. "I support giving sapient beings the right to choose their own path," Thalen replied, "even if that choice makes things harder for us." When the proposal was presented to the Varath Council, the debate lasted for 3 days. Conservatives argued that the observation protocols had worked for millennia and should not be changed. Progressives argued that being caught by the humans proved the old ways were already failing. Scientists argued that open observation would provide better data than secret surveillance. Military advisors worried about security risks. Elder Thorin led the opposition. "We have protected countless species with our observation protocols. Changing them now because one species objects is foolish. The humans cannot even see us. Why should we bow to their demands?" "Because they can feel us," scientist Prime Thalen replied. "And feeling is enough." "Commander Krell, how long did it take the humans to box in all 5 scout ships once they knew something was watching them?" 4 days, Krell admitted. 4 days, Thalen repeated. "A species without quantum sensors, without dimensional scanners, without any technology that should detect us. Trapped our ships in 4 days using only their instincts and simple probability mathematics." "Elder Thorin, if humans can do that, how long before another species figures it out?" How long before our perfect invisibility is no longer perfect? The council chamber was quiet. Everyone understood the implication. The humans had exposed a weakness in Verith technology that no one had known existed. If one species could detect the cloaking through instinct and clever science, others eventually would too. There is another consideration, Thalen continued. The humans have threatened to reveal our observation of the other 42 species. We can refuse their proposal. But then they will contact those species themselves and tell them they are being watched. Those species will react with shock, fear, and anger. They will demand we reveal ourselves. We will have no control over first contact. It will be chaos. Or, he said, we can accept the human proposal. We reveal ourselves on our terms with a careful message with offers of cooperation. We transform from spies into partners. Yes, some species will be angry. Some will say no, but others will say yes. And those relationships will be built on honesty instead of deception. The vote took another full day. In the end, the first species they visited together was called the Nari. They lived on a world covered mostly by shallow seas, and they had just developed nuclear power. The Varath had been watching them for 8 years. Minji stood on the bridge of a joint human-Varath ship, looking down at the blue-green planet below. She was nervous. This was humanity's first real action as a galactic diplomat, and it could go very wrong. Ready? Commander Krell asked. He looked nervous too. As ready as I'll ever be, Minji replied. They sent a message on all frequencies the Nari used for communication. Simple words translated carefully. People of Nari, we are travelers from other worlds. We have been watching your planet to learn about you. We are sorry we did not ask permission first. We want to talk with you if you are willing. We mean no harm. The response came 3 hours later. The Nari government was confused, frightened, but also curious. They agreed to a video communication. The Nari leaders appeared on screen. They looked like large amphibians with 6 limbs and complex patterns on their skin that seemed to shift with emotion. One of them spoke in a series of clicks and whistles that the translation system converted to speech. You have been watching us? For how long? 8 years, Krell admitted. We observed your radio broadcasts, your public spaces, your technological development. We were learning about your civilization before making contact. The Nari leader's skin patterns turned sharp and angular. Anger, Minji realized. You spied on us for 8 years. Yes, Krell said simply. It was wrong. We thought we were protecting you by learning about you first, but we should have asked permission. The Nari were quiet for a moment. Then another leader spoke. Why are you telling us this now? Minji stepped forward. Because we are human. We come from Earth. The Varath were watching us too, and we caught them. When we learned they were watching many other species, we told them they had to stop hiding. We said every species deserves to know the truth and to choose what happens next. Choose? The first Nari leader asked. Yes, Minji said. You can ask us to leave and never return. You can ask us to stay but watch from a distance. You can ask us questions. You can ask for help. You can tell us to come back in 100 years. It's your choice, your world, your decision. The Nari leaders talked among themselves for several minutes, their skin patterns shifting rapidly. Finally, they turned back to the screen. We need time to think. This is overwhelming. Aliens are real. They have been watching us. Everything we thought about being alone in the universe is wrong. We understand, Krell said. Take all the time you need. We will stay in orbit and wait for your answer. It took the Nari 3 weeks to respond. During that time, their world went through shock, fear, excitement, and intense debate. Some Nari wanted the aliens to leave immediately. Some wanted to learn everything they could. Some were angry about the secret observation. Some were grateful for the honesty. When they finally answered, they surprised everyone. We want you to stay, the Nari leader said. We want to learn from you. But we also want regular meetings. We want to know what you observe. We want partnership, not surveillance. Krell agreed immediately. The first contact with the Nari became a model for what was possible when observation was honest. The second species was not as easy. The Coven were a proud warrior culture who had recently achieved spaceflight. When they learned the Varath had been watching them secretly, they were furious. Their leaders demanded the Varath leave immediately and never return. This is what I feared, Krell said quietly after the communication ended. We have made enemies. Or, Captain Hyun suggested, you have made a species that values its independence. Leave them alone. Come back in a century and ask again. Maybe by then they'll be curious instead of angry. The third species, called the Pelin, were plant-based beings who lived at a much slower pace than most species. They had been observed for 15 years. When told about the surveillance, they seemed unconcerned. "We assumed we were being watched," their representative said, speaking slowly. "The universe is vast. We are young. Of course, older civilizations would notice us. We just wondered when you would say hello." Minji was surprised. "You knew?" "We suspected," the Pelin replied. "Strange things happen sometimes. Equipment malfunctions near certain locations. Subtle disturbances in our orbital patterns. We debated whether it was natural phenomena or visitors. Now we know. And you're not upset?" Krell asked. "Why would we be upset?" The Pelin responded. "You watched, but you did not harm. You studied, but you did not interfere. Now you are honest. This seems reasonable." Over 6 months, the human Vareth teams visited all 42 species. The reactions varied wildly. Some were grateful. Some were furious. Some were terrified. Some thought it was a joke. 2 species had already figured out they were being watched and had been waiting for the Vareth to admit it. One species, the Theron, surprised everyone. They were mathematicians who lived in massive floating cities in their planet's thick atmosphere. When told about the surveillance, they immediately asked to see Dr. Shungho's probability detector designs. "Fascinating," the lead Theron scientist said, studying the blueprints. "You detected probability distortions. We have been working on similar theories but never had a practical application. Can we collaborate on this technology?" Within weeks, the Theron had improved the probability detector by 300%. They shared the new designs with both humans and Vareth. Suddenly, invisible observation was much harder, even for species without human instincts. "They weaponized mathematics against us," Krell said, but he was smiling. "I suppose we deserve that." Back on Earth, Dr. Do-hyun's research on human threat detection had become the most studied scientific paper in galactic history. Dozens of species were discovering that they had similar instincts, just less developed than humans. Some could sense temperature distortions. Others could detect gravitational anomalies. A few had electromagnetic sensitivity. "Humans aren't special," Do-hyun explained in a lecture broadcast across several worlds. "We're just the first species that the Vareth encountered with strong predator detection instincts. But every species evolves to survive in their environment. Every species has hidden abilities that seem ordinary to them, but might be remarkable to others." Ji-won, the cargo pilot who had first reported feeling watched, was interviewed dozens of times. He always gave the same answer: "I just knew something was there. Same as knowing when someone is staring at you in a crowd. It's not magic, it's just paying attention." Hana, the security officer, became head of Earth's Alien Relations Security Division. Her job was to make sure future visitors to Earth's orbital facilities announced themselves properly. "No more invisible watchers," she said in every briefing. "If you want to visit, say hello." 6 months after the Seoul Accords were signed, representatives from Earth, the Vareth, and 15 of the contacted species met at Seoul Orbital Platform. They were forming a new organization, the Galactic Observation Ethics Council. Its purpose was to establish rules for how advanced civilizations could study developing ones. The rules they created were simple. First, contact must happen within months, not years. Second, observation must be transparent and consensual. Third, observed species can refuse at any time. Fourth, observers must share what they learn with those being observed. Fifth, privacy must be respected even during consensual observation. Minji was elected as one of the council's first coordinators. She stood at the podium during the opening ceremony, looking out at a room filled with humans, Vareth, Nari, Pelin, Theron, and dozens of other species. "A year ago," Minji said, "Commander Krell thought his ships were invisible. They had perfect cloaking technology that had worked for 3,000 years. But humans felt them anyway, not because we're special, but because we evolved to notice when we're being watched. This led to difficult conversations about privacy, consent, and respect." She paused. "But those difficult conversations also led to something wonderful. Species that might have met each other in secrecy and suspicion instead met in honesty. We chose partnership over surveillance. We chose transparency over control. And in doing that, we built something better than perfect invisibility. We built trust." The council chamber erupted in approval. Different species had different ways of showing agreement, but the sentiment was universal. Commander Krell and Commander Taeyang sat together in the observation area, watching the ceremony. They had become unlikely friends over the past months, sharing drinks and debating philosophy during the long diplomatic missions. "Your species changed the galaxy," Krell said quietly. "Your species was willing to change," Taiyang replied. "That's harder than catching invisible ships." "True," Krell agreed. He looked out at the stars visible through the station windows. "I wonder what other assumptions we've been making. What other things we thought were impossible until someone came along and did them anyway." Taeyang smiled. "I guess we'll find out together." On the Varath homeworld, the council was updating their databases. The entry for humanity was being revised. Under threat assessment, someone had written, "Dangerous, not due to weapons or aggression. Dangerous because they ask uncomfortable questions that change everything." Scientist Prime Thalen read the entry and added a note. "But also, essential.